Hello and welcome back to our Yoga Sutras course. This is class 5. So we are going through the 5 vrittis, and we only have one more vritti to go. We've done correct knowledge, incorrect knowledge. We've done imagination and dreaming. So now it's the turn for memory. So, Sutra 11, memory is the retention of the experiences of previously perceived objects. And that's how Patanjali defines memory. Now, of course, memory is also a huge problem in general because what happens with memory is we go to the past. So, whatever's going to take you out of the here and now is going to be a problem. So we talked about in the last class how in imagination is a huge problem because it drags us to the future. In the fantasy paradigm, we're imagining a fantasy like, oh, I'd be happy if I had this, that, and the other thing. Now, memory does that, but in lamentation towards the past. So we often find ourselves drifting to the past, lamenting, even when it's like a nice memory. If you observe your mind carefully, you'll see that there is a bit of melancholy, of sadness. Let's say you're a parent like I am, and then you see the little baby picture, like your kids were like 2, and it's so cute. It's like, oh, look at that. Oh, but there's a little bit of sadness. It's like, oh, like because it's so cute, but now it's just like an annoying teenager or something. I'm kidding. But there's a little sadness of like that moment is gone. So when you see pictures of the past, even you look at yourself like, oh my, I look so young. So there's always like a little bit of, oh man, that was such a good moment. So now, there's like a little melancholy there. So drifting to the past, and what to speak of when it's actually like, oh, so and so left me, and so I said those things, and oh, I can't believe I did that stupid thing, and oh, I lost my money, and I did this, like and that kind of thing. So there's this moment of sadness. So it drags us to the past in sadness. Of course, we have to be very careful of that. And what we have to do is, sure, learn from the past mistakes. Of course, we have to use memory to like, oh, okay, that wasn't so good. I have to do better now. What was wrong? Okay, there was some attachment there. There was this. Oh, I didn't stick to my dharma. Oh, I was too rushed. Okay, and now I can. I'll try to do better from now on. So we certainly want to take lessons from the past, but we don't want to, we want to, stay in the past. We want to come back as soon as possible to the here and now and live our lives with the wisdom we have accumulated from the past. So very, very careful with going to the past. Okay, so memory is quite clear there. So now with that, we have explained the definition of the 5 vrittis. Now, let's talk about the vrittis just a little quickly before we move on to the next thing. These 5 vrittis, not a big deal. The actual vrittis, it's not so important. It's not going to be a major part of your practice to like, oh, wait a second, am I now interpreting things correctly or incorrectly? Am I dreaming, imagination? It doesn't matter, memory. Not the point. The point is your mind is doing stuff. He could have done some other definition. You could redefine the vrittis if you're so not a big deal. The point is the vrittis. There are vrittis. Your mind is always doing something, and that something can be klishta. A klishta can be, troublesome or not troublesome. A klishta. So yeah. So the mind is doing stuff. If Patanjali used 5 here, which are nice 5 major categories, it's fine. Not important to worry about the categories themselves so much, but just to remember that whatever your mind is doing, you know, is it the right thing? Is it troublesome or not troublesome? And then you have to control it. And that's going to be the topic of the next sutra. So, Sutra 12, you can pacify the fluctuations of the mind by practice and detachment. So please memorize these two words, practice and detachment. So these are very important words in yoga. And of course, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says the same thing in verse 35 of chapter 6, if I'm not mistaken. So practice and detachment. Now, why do we need these two things? It's very interesting. Practice. Practice is called sadhana. We have to, yoga is interesting because it's not just like a faith based religion. It's not the kind of thing that says, okay, look, if you just believe in this or that or the other thing, you're all good. No, yoga has nothing to do with that. Yoga is like the belief part is like, do you believe the Yoga Sutras are going to help you? Okay, so then take them seriously. That's where the believe part comes in. You have to have faith. You had like faith in me, or else you wouldn't be doing this course. You had some faith. So that kind of like, oh yeah, I believe this will be good for me. I hope you think it is good for you. So that faith, to take that first step, you need that faith, that believe. Yes, okay, believe. Okay, I accept that. And then you go from there. Then you have to practice. So practice is called sadhana. And that's why in my 3T path book, I lay out all these things you have to do, this intense, all these things you have to work on, from diet to meditation, lifestyle choices, cleanliness, study. There's all these things you have to, so that you have to really work on it. And if you don't work on it, it won't work. I mean, you won't get any advancement. It's a very interesting concept. Yoga is like you really have to put time in. And you have to put a lot of time in to be, Patanjali is going to talk about it later. It's going to be great verse is going to explain like about this practice coming up. But it really is a lot. I mean, I like to, I tell my students, like, if you look at neuroscience research on meditation, on the power of meditation to really like change the person's ability to deal with things and how the brain works, like neuroscience studies, and they measured like in terms of thousands of hours of meditation. So that when they go study like a meditator, it's like, okay, this meditator has 10,000 hours of meditation. That's okay. That's like that's enough for us to see stuff, and then 20,000 hours, 30, like the top ones are like 40,000 hours of meditation under their belt. So it's like, wait a second, I'm meditating 20 minutes a day. Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot, right? When you're talking about 1,000 hours of meditation, if you're meditating an hour a day, which is awesome, right? That will take you 3 years. So, you know, it's for 1,000 hours. And if you want to have 10,000, that would be 30 years. So I'm kind of like I've passed the 10,000 hour mark, but I've been working it for a long time. So, and it's not just the meditation, of course, it's everything. So there really is a sadhana. Of course, in the 3T path, I talk about the three daily practices you can't go without, which is meditation, study, and eating prasad. But that's something we're not going to get into here, but you can see about that in my book, The 3T Path. So, very important practice. And then detachment. Now, detachment is a huge topic as well, of course, and it comes up over and over again, all over the place. Bhagavad Gita, and Yoga Sutras, Bhagavad Purana, everywhere you're going to see detachment. Why detachment? Detachment means you take a step back. Remember, right in the beginning of the Yoga Sutras here, we saw Patanjali using the term of witness, of the person who is seeing, right? You're seeing your mind. You took a step back. We talked about the need to take that step back and be the witness, the observer of your mind. So detachment means you've taken a little step back, and then you can observe things as they are. Because again, this is a dream. This is not totally real. So if you get too involved with it, you get carried away by it and you don't understand things rightly. It's like if you go to the movies, of course, you want to get, if you pay to go to the movies, you want to get into it, but you have this ability to take a step back. And you can still enjoy the movie, like we can enjoy life. It's not that we're going to become weird and like, oh, creepy and, no, you can still enjoy life, have family, but like a movie, like you're watching it. So when something horrible happens in the movie, it doesn't destroy you. You have this ability to know, okay, that's, oh, it's intense. Oh wow, that bomb fell and oh no. But it's like the bomb didn't really fall. So like, you're okay. You took a step back, so you're not completely affected by, you're not destroyed by the experience of life. So if you don't learn to take this step back to be the observer, then you just, life becomes too much. You can't handle it. It's like you become too attached, you become too sad, you become destroyed, things can destroy you. Now, if you take a step back, then you have the coolness to work things out, to observe things correctly, to find solutions, to find other things to do, to understand the real path, what's really going on. So in spiritual life, it's going to be a lot of that because we are, in fact, it's actually the truth. We are the observers. It works because it's true. It doesn't work because it's a trick. It works because, in fact, that's what yoga is saying. Look, you're an eternal soul. You've been alive since forever. You've always existed. And you're just right now going through this body, and you've gone through a million other lifetimes. So don't get too caught up with it because you are, in fact, the observer. And if this whole universe would blow up now, you'd continue existing, never, because you're eternal. You're not material. You don't depend on this body, on this planet, on this solar system, galaxy, or the whole universe. You're the observer of all that's going on here. So very important thing, to cultivate, to understand. Of course, there's lots of more. I talk about that in my other videos in my channel. You'll be able to see videos on detachment, something you'll be able to cultivate and understand more and more. Very, very important. Okay. Let's see one more sutra. Now, let's define again, Patanjali does that thing I told you about. He will say something and then define it. So he says, what you need in Sutra 12, he said, what you need is to practice and detachment. Oh, and by the way, sorry, I forgot to mention, but not too late. Sutra 12 was effectively the first instruction on how to practice yoga. So Sutra 12 is the first time he actually gives you a practice. He tells you something to do. He gives you an instruction. So practice and detachment. Okay, now we know how to get on with our yoga practice and detachment. So that was the first sutra where he gives us an explanation. Now he is defining practice. Practice means putting in effort to steady the mind. Okay. So that's what we're practicing. We're putting in effort. The word effort. You have to put in effort. And why? To steady the mind. Of course, all of yoga, what we're doing is we're controlling, right? Nirodha, subduing, controlling, steadying, pacifying. That's what we're doing with the mind. That's what we're practicing yoga. We want the mind to be cool, placid like a lake, not agitated like a stormy ocean. We want a cool, placid lake mind so we can see deep into it, right? When the water is steady, you can see right deep into the water, right? And if it's got lots of ripples and waves, you can't see anything. So we want that cool, clear, steady water so we can see deep into ourselves. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We're practicing to steady the mind. And all the practices that I recommend that you'll see in my 3T Path book, they all work to steady the mind. Again, all the way from what you eat to, outright mental practices like meditation. All this stuff is, and doing your dharma and the emotional management, all these things you saw in that 3T Path Lotus, they're all pointed towards steadying the mind. Very good. So I think we'll stop here with our because we're going to keep these classes nice and short, so you can always, include them in your day. And so we'll stop here for now, and we'll continue in our next class.